I just need to know where.
Hi! Can I help you?
You know where the editor is?
Well, she's at lunch, so... And you realize it's rude not to look at someone when they're talking to you?
That's what we need to talk to her about. See what happens when I try and turn around.
But what about me? I'm just a hand! Ooh, hand.
That is messed up, mate.
I know, right?
Now, I'm sure she'll be back soon.
Easy for you to say, Little Miss Perfect.
How rude! Where is she? Hey guys, it's Miriam and we're back with another Write With Me Wednesday. Today we're talking about first, second, and third person writing. So grab your favorite hot drink and let's get started. What is first, second, and third person? Well, you probably learned this in English class, but first person is like I, me, my. Second person, you, your. Third person, she, he, they. Super easy. Most books are written in one perspective, some change, but every time you use a certain type of perspective, it'll influence how your overall story feels. It determines how your reader is going to perceive your world, gives them freedom and limitations. Overall, it shapes the vibes of your own story along with your own writing voice. It's kind of like a one-on-one. You got your writing voice and you got the perspective that you're writing in. Both of those are like the two key elements that create the feeling of your story. Alright, so first person, I, me, my. This is good for a narrative-like book that looks only through one main character's eyes. If you have not as many main characters, maybe just the one, this is an excellent way to go. It allows your readers to really get into the inner psyche of your character and why they do what they do, their thoughts, their own feelings and struggles. It puts the reader literally in their shoes. Whereas in other stories, we can relate to people, but it's not as intimate of a relationship with the character. When you're reading something that uses first person, it makes it more personal. When you're reading something long enough that you can identify with, you start slipping into thinking what the character's thinking. When we talk to ourselves, in our brain, I use the first person, obviously. So when a reader is invested in your character, so much so that they start to one-on-one literally identify with them in the most intimate way possible, it can be extremely powerful. But make sure you use it in a way that, you take care of it. You don't want to damage somebody's perspective on a certain topic by creating a toxic mental environment. A toxic mental environment that your own character is experiencing is a good avenue to use for growth, but just don't make the whole story toxic. That just will negatively affect your reader and your story. So use it intentionally. Yep, it was Monday. My 59 minutes of freedom before I had to leave for work were chipping away at me. I made myself do a few jumping jacks to warm up for my morning stretching. Well, more or less routine. My goal is to do them every day, but I only do them about half the time. At 8:30, my second alarm reminded my ADHD brain that I had half an hour left to spend getting ready. But I spent 5 of those nodding off. My last alarm sounded at 8:45. 5 minutes had turned into 15, and I still had to eat breakfast, pack my lunch, make my tea. Where had the time gone? I raced to get everything done, and checked my phone for the time when I spotted the day of the week. It was Saturday. I had set my alarms for the wrong day. Well, at least I'm not gonna be late. Now clearly, as I read that, I added a lot of animation to my voice. However, that's the kind of vibe you want to give your reader when they see it. A final note for first person is that it's much easier to come up with little details that are relatable and personable when you are writing in it yourself, because just like your reader can one-on-one identify with what the character's feeling, you can as well. So this is an excellent technique to use in early drafts when you're trying to come up with natural details and be relatable and trying to juggle all these things. So I love to start drafts by writing in the first person, the entire thing. If I need to write from a different character's perspective, I just put a little note for myself telling this is in this character's perspective. This has helped me immensely as I have practiced. This is one of the most fundamental tools that boosted my writing, unlike anything else. Second person is your. Most of the time, this isn't used. It's probably the least common perspective that writers use that I've seen, at least. I've seen it more in older storybooks when a writer directly addresses the audience. That's what this is generally used for. When you go from talking in, maybe it could be first or to third person. You go from talking, yeah, da da da, and then you say, you know what I mean? Like, you just break that fourth wall. The fourth wall is like that invisible barrier keeping the reader inside the story and the world, but it's broken when they're directly addressed. A narrator is a character themselves. Because you use your own personality to create a story, you are actively affecting and involved in the story. Whether you take a more lax or in-front approach to it, you are a character. Using second person to address your readers is a more upfront approach to taking advantage of a narrator having their own character. But it can be hilarious because if you just have a funny, quirky thing you want to say about this villain's like ridiculously spicy palate and you just want to insert something funny, it's a perfect opportunity. It also gives a more one-on-one connection to not just the story, but the reader and you as the writer. It builds that relationship and it gives a different type of relatability. You can enhance their experience by using the same dialect. If you're going to use second person and directly address the reader, you have two options. You can stick to the dialect of the world, referencing events, characteristics of the world and places, which I recommend doing. However, if your characters, let's say you decided that they never ever use contractions, this is a way to affect how they speak and creates a different subtle vibe to it. Or maybe they're British, so they use British dialect over English, British dialect over American. You can stick to that or you can break it. It's really up to you to decide if that is an appropriate place to both break the fourth wall and break the dialect. But while it's an option, you need to be choosy about when you do it, just like anything else. Some people think Andrew's theory that all currency could be measured by the weight of potatoes is preposterous. But he is a persistent fellow, raised in the Venera countryside, a place well known for its magnificent fresh-baked biscuits. I can attest to this, for I once visited when I was as young as Andrew, to prove the rumors true. Have you ever tried them? Now then, the cafe in question that served these heavenly delights was owned by Mrs. and Mr. Betham, who believed nothing had more value or power to bring people together than the food that filled their stomachs. So it was not a great leap for Andrew to conclude that food is as good as currency. He simply added to his parents' belief. A final note is that the narrator may reference themselves in the first person, as we saw in this example, but it gives it a lively feel, like you are sitting with your best bud and you're experiencing this together. That is disconnected from the story and yet connected to the story at the same time. It's very unique, underused, but is so cool when it is used properly. It gives a very classic feel to a story, like the storyteller is interacting with you, which is actually what's happening, but you... Now let's talk about third person. Third person, she, he, they, is the most common form of writing I've seen. When it comes to novels and series, Most of them are written in this format. This is a great tool to use because it does not force the reader to commit to a certain character's perception. You can jump from character to character much easier than in first person. However, when you jump from one character's perspective to another, talking through their eyes but using third person, be careful, because if you do it too much, it's going to make your readers get confused. They don't know who to commit to and emotionally invest in if you keep changing it up. However, if you're going to go from an evil villain and then make a scene cut and you're back to your hero, that is a great, smooth way to do it. Because now you have two clear characters for your readers to commit and invest in. Instead of like multiple side characters that you're just going all around redescribing the same things, which I'm sure there are instances when that can be useful, but generally it's not a great idea. The kind of relatability that this fosters in your reader is more laid back because they're just along for the ride and they get to see everybody from a zoomed out perspective without having to commit or feel responsibility. At least that's how they may feel at first, and if you know what you're doing with writing, you can make them be invested in your world. Talking in third person also can make it a little easier to describe the environments around you because it's not limited to a certain character's knowledge. So let's say this character has never seen anything past this great mountain near their village and has not heard anything else. They don't know very much about the world. Well then, it's kind of hard to just tell the reader all about the world and the structure if you're in first person because the character doesn't know it, which can be a great way for discovery, but for an epic that you're trying to go overall and big stuff happening, it makes it harder. For third person though, you can do that as much as you want. There's no problem, no limitation, and the reader gets the opportunity to know something that the characters don't. This is so fun when the reader knows something the characters don't and the characters know something the reader doesn't. Switching it up makes it very interesting and creates more of an interactive feel. For our third example, I have a special treat for y'all. So, roll film.
Who am I? Why did this happen to me? Why did they have to die? I keep asking myself, but I don't have answers. That's why I'm going to find them. We have to find out what happened to them. I'll never stop until we know the truth.
Alec!
Isla, run!
If you have a book that you're looking to publish or have published but need marketing for it, then a book trailer might be a great option for you. If you liked how we did ours, go ahead and contact us at ttt.teatimetales@gmail.com, or you can contact us on our website, which is linked below. There's a contact page there. We are here to help you achieve your creative goals. All right, ad over. So let's talk about how we use first, second, and third person together. So we already kind of touched on this when the narrator referred to themselves in first person and then switched to second person. This is a great resource to be able to mix and match them. But again, try not to do it too much, otherwise you may confuse your readers or create frustration. For first person and third person, it's kind of difficult to make that transition because you're living in the character's head for so long, and then you're like, oh yeah, and then she did this and he did that, and you're, what? What happened to this character that I just spent this whole book getting to know? Well, you can make this transition by taking a scene cut, which is probably the easiest way. A scene cut is like when you see that big blank, like you're reading text and then there's this blank space, and then it talks about how it's the next day. Or sometimes they put like dots or diamonds, some kind of barrier, and then they keep going. That's a good way to make a cut and then switch to a different perspective altogether. An example of this would be you're wrapping up your story and then you have a cut, and then you see it's been this grandma reading her 5-year-old granddaughter this storybook. That is a great way to make that transition. For third person going to first person, an easy way to do this is to make the readers pick something up, like a diary entry, a note, something that was obviously handwritten or created by a character in the world. And then you can create different text, like italicize or different font, section it off, and then read it. That's a way to use first person inside of third person. Second person can be used at like literally any time, though you want to use it as an accent. All of these kinds of shifts you use as an accent to further enhance a world, not to overmix everything to where you get this weird ball of something that is called writing, but you're not really sure what the point of it is. So there you have it. That is first, second, and third person. Many ways to mix and match them and to use them as useful tools to create different vibes, impressions, and relatability. So I hope this was helpful to y'all, and I'll see you in the next one. Now get out there and get writing.